Hey, I'm Steve Wilber. I'm the engineering manager for Firebase Remote Config.
And I'm Mayank, the product manager for Remote Config.
We're so excited to be here in Madrid to speak with you all today. It's so valuable for us to speak with you directly, to learn how you're using Firebase, and to get your feedback. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come be here.
Yeah, today we'd like to talk to you about something which is such an important part of our day-to-day journey as developers, and can also cause a lot of trouble and stress at times. We have some tips for you that we think can make this experience of launching new features troublesome and worrisome. And with that, let me share a personal story with you all. So once upon a time, we had a small office in New Delhi on a third-floor walk-up, and it took 45 minutes just to get to the office. We had an amazing team of 6 developers, marketing folks, product manager, and a designer. And we were working on a recently launched ride-sharing app. We were developing a rating and review feature, which had been heavily requested by our customers. And we all thought that this would be the needed feature that would build the trust in our ride-sharing community. I clearly remember the 2-week sprint in which we were building, the feature to allow rating the rides in our ride-sharing app. This new feature was heavily requested. We all worked really hard in that dev sprint and did a lot of internal testing on it, on as many devices as we could find. Eventually, we felt that we had a very good test coverage and we were ready to go live. We crossed our fingers, and we hoped that this new feature would be loved by our customers, and uploaded the builds to the app stores. That day, we felt really confident. The initial metrics looked really good, and we could already see that customers had started using the feature. We started giving each other high fives, and the mood was jubilant. And we all thought that this would definitely be the deciding factor in bringing trust in our ride-sharing community, and that the cool hard cash would be flowing in the very next day. That evening, we packed our bags and went home in a celebratory mood. Well, when we all came back the next morning, things looked very different. Our app rating was plummeting with a ton of 1-star ratings, and we had a bunch of angry customer complaints in our support channel. Worst, our order funnel was down by a full 15%, and it caught our entire team by a total surprise. I distinctly remember reading one of this App Store reviews. Thank you so much for the discount. I can't even open any rides on the app. What do I do with the discount? I wish I could give you 0 stars. This is not something you want to read the first thing in the morning when you come to office, right? So what happened? Well, our team quickly went into a war room-like situation, and we realized that there was a fatal app crash that was happening repeatedly for most of our customers. And it seemed like we hadn't handled a very specific image fetch failure condition. It was so bad that our users were not able to open any rides. Looking at Crashlytics, we found that there were so many conditions caused due to low bandwidth internet that we had not even thought about testing our app with. And these low bandwidth internet conditions were now causing all of these fatal crashes. As more users got exposed to these builds, the problem got even worse, and we couldn't control it from spreading. The situation was getting out of control. We spent the next 2 full days and nights in office trying to work out on a possible fix. It took us more than 48 hours to become fully confident again that the fix would potentially work. And then the only available option for us was to actually send a hotfix upgrade, which took another 1 to 2 days to reach fully to our customers. As a result of responding with delays to this critical bug, we not only lost a ton of hard-earned customers, but our CSAT and NPS took a nosedive. And we were forced to have some very uncomfortable conversations with some really annoyed investors. One of them even said, "Can't you handle even these simple launches? What are you going to do with our funding?" Those couple of weeks were the harshest experience our team had ever seen. I'm sure that everyone here today who's been building and launching new features for your app know that such a situation is a death knell for your product. That if you need 3 to 4 days to respond to a production emergency, you know you lost the opportunity. And with that, I would like to bring in Steve, who could show us some really cool ideas that could have worked for us. Steve?
Well, thanks, Mayank. Wow, that sounds like a really tough launch.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have been so much nicer if Mayank and his team could have rolled out that new feature in a way that lets them stay in control of the experience that they were delivering? What if they could have tested that feature on a broader variety of devices and then only enabled it for a small portion of their customers? What if they could have monitored that new build in the wild and had the ability to roll that feature back if anything went wrong? What if they could have shipped with the confidence of knowing that they weren't going to end up with a wall of bad reviews on their app listing? Well, this is exactly why developers started trying some new app release workflows to solve some of these problems. So let's take a step back and look at some of the methods that developers have been trying. In the beginning, most developers just ship to the app stores, cross their fingers, and watch their metrics. You'd do as much internal testing as you could, but it wasn't uncommon that you would ship a major bug that impacted many of your customers. You would race to prepare a fix, and then just hope that you could get an expedited review to stop the bleeding, like Mayank and his team experienced. And then came tools like Beta by Crashlytics and TestFlight. Those tools made it easier to deliver builds to your private beta testers, which would help you get more test coverage before you sent those builds out to the app stores. But when it came time to release your app, you were still stuck hoping for the best. Next, the app stores introduced phased releases, giving you the ability to slowly roll out a new version of your binary to your customers. And that helps a lot when it comes to minimizing the risk of shipping a new build. But there are still some major challenges to overcome. One challenge is that once a customer gets that app update, there's no way to downgrade them back to the previous experience. So you can minimize the number of customers that get exposed to a bad release. But for those that get it, they're stuck with it. Another challenge is that your team is probably trying to develop multiple features at the same time. And it can get really difficult to coordinate adding those features into a build of your app that you're going to ship to the app stores. And working around this can get really complicated, and it can lead to some anti-patterns, like working in long-lived feature branches or doing testing in one-off builds. Not only is it complicated, but it can slow down feature development because you're not able to easily get feedback from customers on the new feature that you're building. So some of you may already be starting to think about the answer to these problems. It's using a best practice called feature flags or feature switches. With feature flagging, you can keep all of your code on master, but turned off behind a feature flag. You can remotely turn that feature on for any set of customers that you wish. And you have the ability to turn it off if customers aren't getting the experience that you want to deliver. There's no need to wait for an app store release, and there's no need to wait for your users to update the app on their device. As soon as you flip that switch, the feature goes out, or it can roll back immediately. Having your features behind a flag means that you've separated exposing new features from shipping a particular build of your app. And that gives us some huge wins, both in terms of developer productivity and delivering value to customers more quickly. Developers love it because it greatly simplifies their workflow. They can merge their code to master anytime they please, knowing that it will be safely tucked away behind a feature flag until the time's right to expose it to customers. And the flexibility to choose when it's exposed makes it easy to get feedback early from your customers and to build something that they're really going to love. So you may be familiar with feature flagging, and maybe now you're wondering how you can get started using it in your app. The power of feature flagging that we've just been talking about could have saved Mayank's team from the wake of a bad launch that caused them so much distress. And experiences like those are what led Mayank and myself to start working on remote config. We wanted to make it super simple for anybody to launch features in their app with confidence. So let's take a look now at how you can use remote config to apply some of the concepts that we've been talking about. First, we'll take a look at how you can get remote config integrated into your app. You can think of remote config as a key value store that lives in the cloud. And we can use those values that we pull down to dynamically configure how the app will behave. Here's an example of how I'll make a call in our app to grab the configuration from remote config. As you can see, there are just a few lines of code to get started. We'll make a fetch call to remote config to pull down the configuration. And then once we're ready to make use of those values, we'll call activate so that they're ready and available to the app. And this is how we'll use the flag once we've got it pulled down. Hopefully no surprises here. We'll just grab the value from remote config and make use of it like a standard Boolean value. If it's true, we'll turn this new feature on for this customer, or if not, we'll just stick with the old behavior. So once we have our app coded up, then we can use remote config to enable that flag for internal testing. As we stabilize that feature, we'll expand our group of testers, and then we'll start a small percentage rollout, and we'll use Firebase to monitor how the release is going. We'll fix any issues that come up, and then we'll increase the percentage until the feature is completely rolled out. Let's check out a demo. OK. We're going to walk through releasing a new feature that allows reviewing a driver in a fictional ride-sharing app called RideSpotter. That might sound like a familiar scenario. As we walk through, we'll see the steps that Mayank and his team could have taken to have a relaxed and confident release. In the current version of RideSpotter, the app lets you see the driver that you're about to call, but there's no way to know what other riders think of that driver. So let's add that now. The first thing that we'll want to do is test the feature internally before we expose it to any customers. So let's set up a feature flag that will allow us to do that. We'll open up remote config, and we'll create the parameter that's going to be our feature flag. We'll call the parameter driver review enabled, and we're going to set the default value to false. That way we won't accidentally expose it before we're ready. Now we're ready to start making our feature available to our internal testers. We're going to use something called a user property from Google Analytics for Firebase. That's a key value pair that we can set in the client to give it a particular state, which remote config can then use to target the behavior to this particular app. In this case, we're going to use it to tag the username of the user that's in the app so that we can serve up this new feature to a specific user. In remote config, we'll set up a new condition to enable our feature. And the condition is going to make use of a user property called username. We've already coded up our app so that when the user logs into the app, we'll set the value of username. So let's call that condition member of dev team. And we'll say it applies if that user property called username contains swilber@google.com. And now that we have that condition set up, we'll say if member of dev team is true, then we'll enable the feature. And once we publish that change, it's automatically live in our app. And with that, we'll be able to start doing internal testing of our feature. As you can see, our driver review feature is now visible in the app for testing. OK, so let's fast forward in time a little bit. And the dev team has stabilized the feature a bit, and they want to get some more eyes on it. A great next step at this point is to open up the feature for dog fooding for anybody at the company to take a look and test it. So let's create a new condition, and we'll call this one company employee. And we'll have this one apply if that username contains any @google.com email address. And we'll set that one to true as well to start our dog food. OK, so we've tested our feature, and we're feeling pretty good about it. It's time to release it out to our customers. Now, thinking back to Mayank's story, this is where things got a little iffy. But we're going to do a couple of things differently. We're going to start by exposing that feature to just a small portion of our customers. And since we're using remote config, we're going to have the ability to turn the feature off if anything goes wrong. And so with that in mind, we can confidently ship this build out to the app stores. With our build out, now let's go back to remote config, and we'll create a new condition to start the rollout. We'll call that condition driver review rollout. And we're going to say this one applies if the user is in a random percentile. And we'll start with just 1%. That'll be a nice, slow start to rolling out our feature. If anything at all goes wrong, it'll be contained to just 1% of our user base. And once we publish our changes, we've begun our rollout. So now that our feature's out in the wild, we definitely want to start monitoring it more closely. So let's switch over to Crashlytics to check on the stability of our new feature. Sure enough, it looks like there's a new bug that's popped up here. So let's dig in by clicking on this issue. OK, if we look at this stack trace, I think we can see that fetching new images for our review feature is failing for some customers, and that's causing the app to crash. So now that I've identified that this new problem is caused by my feature, I'm going to roll it back so that I can limit the impact of this bug. I'll switch back over to remote config. I'll go to my feature flag, and I'm going to set it to false for all of my production users. I'll hit publish, and just like that, I've gotten all of my users back into a good state. Mayank, wouldn't it have been amazing if you could have done this during your launch?
Absolutely.
Yeah, now I'll go create a fix for this bug, and I'll get it shipped out with my next release. So let's imagine that we've gotten that fix shipped, and now we're ready to start our rollout once again. Let's go back to our feature flag, and we'll again set it to true. And then we'll hit publish. And with that, we've restarted our 1% rollout. From here, we'll slowly ramp up the exposure of our feature by increasing the value of that percentile condition. We'll continue to monitor the health of our launch in Firebase as we ramp it up, and eventually we'll get to 100% of our customer base. And with that, our feature will be shipped, and it's time to celebrate.
Switch back to slides.
Back to slides, please. So in this scenario, we did a straightforward percentage rollout, but I want to highlight a couple of other powerful options that remote config can help you with. Sometimes it can be helpful to do a region-based rollout. For example, maybe that new feature that you're building is only available in Spain to start. Or you might want to target a Firebase audience. For example, all of your users that have made purchases in your app in the past. Remote config can allow you to target these groups and even mix it with a percentage condition so that you can apply the same rigor to these targeted types of rollouts. OK, so those are some tips on how you can use remote config for a rollout. But we've been working on some pretty exciting new stuff. Mayank, can you show us?
Absolutely. Thank you. Wow, Steve, where were you when we were building a ride-sharing app? We could have certainly used that expertise of feature flagging. In fact, feature flags and percentage rollouts in remote config have received so much love from developers that a couple of months ago, our team decided to get together and make this experience of shipping new features even simpler and even more powerful. I would like to give you all today a sneak peek of what our team has been building. We call it feature rollouts. It combines the power of products you already love and use every day in your life, Google Analytics, remote config, and Crashlytics. It makes it a whole lot easier to roll out new features while constantly monitoring their stability metrics. So let's go back in time and assume that my team was building the ride-sharing app with feature rollouts in remote config and see how we could have benefited from the best practices that Steve just described. So as Steve mentioned, we could have used remote config and created a new feature with the needed config parameters for the rating and review feature. And notice how cleanly all the parameters are now organized on the remote config UI. And with feature rollouts, it takes just few clicks to set up both an internal testing track and a production track, something which required quite a bit of conditions in remote config. And since feature rollouts is built on top of remote config, it manages all of that complexity for you under the hood. And the percentage rollouts are now extremely simple to manage. Roll forward or roll back in just one click, instantaneously. And this is probably the best feature I love about feature rollouts. You can clearly see your crash-free users. How is that trending for your overall app as compared to your users who are just exposed to this feature? This information previously was very hard to get in Firebase and is now a huge statistical data point for you to take the next probable action, which in this case looks like a potential rollback. And with the change history for all of the rollout, your team can now collaboratively work together in launching anything you are building. We've built feature rollouts on battle-tested remote config, which is already serving more than 3 billion app instances per day, and is completely free for you to use. With remote config and feature rollouts, we are trying to remove the guesswork needed in launching new features consistently, reliably, and confidently every time. You no longer need to build and maintain complex feature flagging systems for yourself. Rather, just focus on building the best apps. If you're interested in developing with feature rollouts and remote config, I'm happy to share that we are opening up our beta program today. Scan this link or open this link. Scan this QR code or open this link on your phones right now and reserve your spot. We can't wait to see what you'll build and launch with remote config and feature rollouts.
We'd love to have you try out the beta of future rollouts, but there will only be a limited number of spots to start. So zoom in, scan the QR code, or go to the URL and sign up for access to our beta. Feel free to reach out to either of us on Twitter if you want to chat about remote config or anything Firebase. And if you have any questions after the session, Mayank and I'll be back in the Ask Firebase area. Thank you.
Thank you.